The concept of living on your own. When you think of living on your own, it means being independent, being able to move around things and objects. About 2.5 years ago, I made the decision when I had gotten done with school, I finished, I had discussed with my parents, hey, I think it's time for me to move out of house. Now bear in mind, my parents never wanted to kick me out of house. They didn't like the initial plan because they were scared and they didn't know if I was able to be independent enough to take care of myself. However, what is the truth behind living on your own? Especially considering I lived off grid, relatively small, in a tiny house. I've made a lot of videos about it, but I thought today we sit down, sit back, and let me just be honest and open upon what I really thought of my time being on a trailer park. So sit back and relax, and we're going to start from the very beginning. I just finished school. It was the September, and I'd thought, hey, I want to get out of house. So your boy obviously searched for houses in the region. Unaffordable. Simply, even in those times, I was not able to get a mortgage. I could not buy. However, I could rent. Ridiculous. I couldn't get an $800 mortgage, yet I could rent a place for $1,200 a month. Makes absolutely no sense. Still to this day, it is absolutely ridiculous. So then I thought, man, Spain, what about Spain? Beautiful, could buy some really nice house for a nice price, but I will be in a country where I've never been. The culture is different, it's more relaxing, it's more fierce as well in some situations, but I don't know anybody there. And I wouldn't feel comfortable in a country I've never been before, right? And not just that, but the documents and the whole legalization of becoming a citizen, it was too much. So then my mom decided, hey, what about you buying a tiny house? Now first I was like, you gotta be joking, there's no way, this is a joke, right? But when I thought about it, I was like, it's not a bad idea. Now here's the thing about a tiny house, right? It's an amazing concept. It's living small. It's really nice. You can have any size you want. If you buy new, for example, you can customize it as much as you want, depending on your budget. Now I had a budget first, and we'd look at this place nearby my parents. It was very shady. I did not like the first look of the park because it was like hidden a little bit, but it was nice. It was by the water. It was very quiet. Met this guy, and the place was up for sale for 16,000. I was like, okay, that's actually not a bad price. You get a bit of a garden, but mostly, can I live there? Because there's a rule in the Netherlands, which is very vague but somewhat very understandable, is a tiny house. You cannot live in there 365 days a year, like a regular house, right? You know, you can't get permits for it. There is this law. It's got its reasons, and I'll explain to you just now. Because I'm going to take Florida for an example. Very vague, I know. But I know in America, I don't know if this is different per state, but you got trailer parks where you can live permanently. You don't need a permit for it. You just put a trailer on there, bum. I think you rent the ground or hire, maybe you buy a plot of land. Here you can't. You can't just buy a plot of land and put a tiny house on it. If you do, it's going to cost you a lot of money, around $500,000. But then you might as well just buy a big house, detached, in my opinion, right? Anyways, that's not the point. The point is, it's a bit of a fuck up here. You want affordable houses here, but you won't let people do those type of initial plans because it's low in tax. And that's why they don't want that. And because a form of socialism as well. Meaning that a lot of people that do have trailer parks or live on trailer parks are unfortunately often associated with criminal organizations, are often odd, shady people, and I can speak from that. 100% agree with that statement. However, when I got my tiny house, I didn't know what to expect. I was very excited because I had bought the place. I'd found a piece of land that I hired. It wasn't mine. I lived there for a year and a half, and I didn't have any expectations. Only that it's going to be a lot of fun, being independent. It's going to feel weird because I've never been on my own permanently. That's kind of odd. That's scary, man, as a 20-year-old, as a 19, 18-year-old. Met my neighbors. They were old people. They were retired. So I was like, oh, that is phenomenal. I wanted a place that was kind of like a dead-end street, but the only people that would come there were the residents themselves of the tiny houses. I liked that concept, and I took the one. There were 3 available, but the last one was in a dead street, and like I've mentioned, and it suited me out very nice. I got that one. Met my neighbors. They came across pretty nice, this and that. But you know me. I keep my distance from people, so I'm like, okay, it is what it is. I met my neighbors, cool. My place gets put on the land, and before you know, problems already start. You see, before we got that land, before we had arrived to the land, I walked up on the property. I never met this dude before. He said, hey, he didn't even mention who he was. He said, this is my piece of land. Before even mentioning his name, before mentioning hey or doing anything, this dude eventually, his decision was something that pissed me off heavily and my parents. He decided to, before I placed my tiny house, right, to put up a fence without permission, without asking us, negotiating. He thought it would be a good idea to put up a fence. And the fence actually partly damaged the exterior of my place. So I was pissed off, rightfully so. If he would have just asked, I said, listen, no problem, because at the end we found out that little piece did belong to him. However, what he did was he stole extra meters from me, so I couldn't get past my own property. So that's why I got upset. I initially ripped the fence down. Yeah, he got angry, but I was like, hey, you illegally placed a fence without my consent. Then that gives me the right, in my opinion, to go break it down. It's sticking out of my property. Come on now. Were we both in the wrong? No, absolutely not. He was in the wrong, 100%. Should I have done it different? You gotta understand, when it happened, I've been waiting 4 months for the manager to do something. He hadn't done fuck all in the 4 months' time that he promised, okay, we'll do something about it. So I was like, I'll take matters in my own hand. I'll rip the fence down, which I did. Yeah, the dude was upset. But he couldn't understand as well that I was upset. I couldn't walk past my tiny house without having to squeeze in through. I could hardly get anything. I couldn't put no barrels through. I couldn't do stuff. Anyways, that was one of the first incidents, by the way, that happened. I've had multiple incidents with the people there. What is something you can expect on a trailer park? Unfortunately, the truth is, people moan a lot for some reason. You'd think, oh, but it's a beautiful concept, right? Living on a park. That's what I thought first as well. I liked the park. It was clean. It was pretty quiet, at least on my end. Yeah, obviously you got a lot of tourism. Breskens, Zeeland, also a lot of tourism. We're just a village outside, which is luckily, we avoid the tourism, which is really, really nice. Because if that was the case, same thing here, we wouldn't gotten it. If there was a place available in the entrance, I would not have gotten it. Simply because I don't like to get woken up at 5 a.m. by kids screaming. Because the place that I got, there were no kids there. There were only old people. So, I was the youngest kid there. Was it jealousy from some people? I believe so. Yes, I believe my neighbors were somewhat jealous of my place because they were living in a fucking container. That's what it looked like, respectfully. I'd been very respectful to them and in general to the people because I'm new there, obviously, I had a conversation with them a couple of times, but I never really opened up about who I was because I just couldn't trust them for some reason. I had this weird feeling of all of them. I'm like, I feel like I just can't trust these people. Sometimes people give a certain vibe off and it automatically makes you think, ooh, like you get that weird feeling. You get what I mean? Exactly. Anyways, I did have a lot of fun as well. I had friends come over, this and that, the average stuff. I never partied. However, I will admit from my end as well that I did have the occasional music on. What I did not know, and this is my own fault looking back at it, I should have tested it out before I was, and I will admit my fault here as well. With some things my neighbors were correct about the noise level. Some things they were 100% correct with my speaker on. Now here's the thing what I did not know. I didn't know the insulation was super thin in a tiny house. I thought it was the exact same or similar to a regular house with stone brick, right? I did not know you could hear footsteps. They claimed that they could hear my footsteps, which I was like, but I gotta walk over my floor, right? But then you should wear socks. Don't tell me what I should wear in my own house. That's what I said. I said, hey, I can wear what I want in my own house. Anyways, I played football once in my place. And I said, oh, I did not know you guys could hear that. It was hollow. But I did not know because it was something new to me. So those were many, many of these things that I will admit as well. Like, yeah, some things were my fault. But majority of the things that did occur there, I felt like I wasn't welcome them. And it was very, very obvious. The thought of being on my own was great. But every time I had done anything in my garden, do a little bit of work in my garden, or from the moment that I woke up, got in my garden, I got harassed continuously by one neighbor. 2, there were a couple. And I'm not making this up. When eventually I got a party tent up, and I had a party tent, You're allowed that, by the way. Nothing they can do about it. I had a party tent set up because I felt being watched the whole time. Because prior, before the party tent, every time I was in my garden, they were outside. I mean, I'm speaking about fucking 9 o'clock in the morning, me chilling in the garden having breakfast. And all of a sudden, 2 minutes later, they both rock up. Come on now. Same thing happened at night. It's 10 o'clock at night. What do you possibly have to do at your retired age to do it? Come on, I'm not doing anything. I'm minding my own business. I felt not welcome. I felt very uncomfortable living there. I didn't feel unsafe. I just didn't feel welcome. And I think what played a big role was the fact they weren't used to having such a youngster. I tried to keep it down as much as possible, but during the day, obviously with nice weather, I'm going to have a bit of music on my phone outside sitting, and they did not appreciate that. But I told them, listen, no, not to be rude, but I'm allowed to do that. I had my sister come over once in a while. I had my parents come over once in a while. Not once did they complain then. But whenever I was on my own, doing work in the garden, having a little bit of music on my speaker once in a while, sometimes I would have it very, very soft. But once they told me that, hey, listen, we can hear it, that's when I said, okay, I'll tone it down. You won't hear it anymore. I obviously still use my speaker, but I put it very low that you can't hear the bass. Okay, understandable. I can work with that respectfully. In general, it was very, very disappointing. I felt mistreated by the people at the park, especially the manager. He was an asshole, and that's an understatement. He was a prick. Fuck him, honestly. What a cunt. Sorry, it had to be said. Disgusting behavior from him. Did not give a single shit of what we said. Didn't care, simply. It was like he prioritized the people that were there the longest, and we felt like, hey, that's cool and all, but you should treat everybody equal. You mustn't treat me different because I'm new here. I want to get treated like everyone else equally. Just because they've been here 50 years. Congratulations, you've been here for 50 years. So what, does that make you the king of this park? Everyone else is also here doing their own thing. So, Anyways, initially, one of my neighbors, the one who placed the fence illegally, without permission, they sold their place. And how did I find out? Because it was up for sale. Now, I did not know how much it sold for. I don't care. German people came. And they were actually quite friendly. I just had this incident once. Wasn't even an argument. Nothing. I came back with Brendan from swimming, and I saw they had parked their car on my place. I said, hey, could you please maybe move your car? I said, oh. I said, no, it's okay. I told to Brendan, happens. They knew they were wrong. But I was like, you know what? I'm not going to make a big issue about it. They parked on my spot. Okay, so what? They were nice. Nothing bad to say about them. Except that, their dog barked once in a while. So what? That's normal sound. And that is another massive thing, which was a big issue there. Eventually, I got into a massive altercation with my neighbors. The ones who kept harassing me. Going back to the party tent first. I put that party tent up there for my privacy. Because every time I was outside, they were outside. I cannot make this shit up. It is ridiculous. So eventually I put the party tent up. And even with the party tent, oh my freaking god. I can't make this up yet again. Even with the party tent, every time I went outside, and it didn't matter what time, 7, 8 o'clock in the morning, 1 in the afternoon, 10 at night, every time I went outside, they would also be outside a minute or two later. And I eventually told them, I said, why do you have to come outside every time when I'm outside? Am I not allowed to go outside? I'm not saying that, but it is so strange to me that at whatever time I go outside, always you come outside a minute or two later. I took an example. I was once outside at 10 o'clock at night, and I told them, what do you have to do at 10 o'clock at night? I'm sitting in the garden, having my dinner. It was stuff like that made me think, what's going on here, dude? So to say the least, the park was really nice. It was clean, it was beautiful, the staff were pretty friendly. The manager was an asshole, so if you're watching this, a big middle finger to you. You were not a nice dude at all. It is really nice living on your own, but from my experience, it was more horror than actual joy. Like I said, I did not feel welcome in my own house. It feels weird, right? You've ever had this feeling that you're in your own house and you feel uncomfortable? because of people around you. I've had it so often, I'm like, I don't even want to go outside because every time I'm outside, they're outside as well. It was very disappointing. It was really, really disappointing. What I had hoped and thought was going to be so much fun, joy for me and my family, for myself, for friends to come over visit, it was a fucking nightmare. It was more terror than joy. And what's sad to say, it was majority of them their own fault. This one time, and this is a great thing, this is when I got really, really angry at them. And you're going to love the story because I think I've said this story before. Maybe I haven't, but here I'll say. So a few months back ago, this was last year, May, June, when we were going to buy this farm, right, that I'm at right now. We bought the farm, and my dogs needed to be with me for about a week time. Alright? A week. Now, obviously, two big dogs, they can't stay in a place like that every time, so I had to walk them 4 or 5 times a day. Alright, no problem. But in the meantime, it was so hot, I couldn't let them in my place. I had no air conditioning. I didn't buy that. I should have bought it afterwards. Anyways, I did not. So I let the door open. So this one time, I had camera surveillance installed at my place. Because if I'm not there for a few hours or days, I want to at least know what's going on. Alright? So anyways, the dogs were there, right? The fence that, half of each, right? I put towels up over it. So that my dogs won't bark every single time somebody walks past. And it's an unknown territory for them. They don't know the place. So rightfully so they're going to bark. Anyway, so neighbors come, the grumpy couple. First thing they say is, get those towels off. I said, hey, I just want to explain to you something. I said, very honest and nice. I said, I have the dogs for about a week. The reason I got these towels up is so that when somebody walks past, they don't just bark every time. Well, it obviously doesn't work, so why don't you put a muzzle on them? That's when I thought, well, what kind of weird comment is that now? It was how they said it. It was with a tone, not wanting to work with me, because I'm thinking, hey, what's the issue? It's shared. The fence is shared. If I want to put lamps on the fence, I can do that. I don't have to ask your permission. Alright? If it's on my side. And the crazy thing is, I can't make this shit up, bro. The towels weren't even sticking out on their side. I had tucked them in on my side of the fence. So I didn't see the issue. I mean, the fucking towels, bro. It's to gain some shadow for my dogs when they sit outside. But they didn't care, obviously. They did not have animals themselves. That's one of the reasons. They were just animal haters. Because every time a dog barked, they would complain. It's a fucking joke, right? So initially, he comes to me and points his finger at me. Which I say, don't point your finger at me. I don't appreciate that. Baba, every time you make noises and that, so can't I sit in my garden then? Am I not allowed to do this? Yes, of course, but you make an exaggerated amount of noise. I said, hey, we've said this before, this discussion is over. But my dogs cannot be in that place the whole entire time. And I just got, I got pissed off to the point that I wanted to smack the dude. I wanted to beat him up, but then I kept my composure and I was like, it is not worth touching somebody like that, Keegan. It is not worth going to prison for somebody like that at that level, man. Fuck, bro. You're retired. What are you stressing about, dude? You're gonna die in a few years' time. Relax. Enjoy your few years you still got. So I got pissed off. I said, listen, I'm done. I'm going to the reception now. We went to the reception. Manager, of course, didn't do fuck all about it, basically. He said as well, it was very odd that they didn't cooperate with me with the fencing and the towel. He said to them, you guys can also work with him. And I said, thank you. That's all I asked. I didn't ask for anything more, but it's every time when I'm outside of my garden, it's harassing me. What do you mean harassing me? Every time I go outside, like I've explained to you before. But it was the bucket that got filled too much for me. I just exploded. And looking afterwards, I was very upset at myself. Because I should have proved them at that point that I could keep my composure. But I did not. Do I feel bad? No, because somewhat I thought it was good that I did it. Because they didn't do it afterwards anymore to me. They didn't bother me afterwards anymore. They left me alone for the few months that I had left. So it did somewhat work. So anyways, then I sold my place to the neighbors next to me. The German people that bought the dude's place. And they bought my place. And since then, I haven't been back to a park. I would never go back to a park. No. And I don't recommend to anyone, actually, to go live on a trailer park. Unless you're like, hey, I'm cool with it. I can deal with these type of people. Cool. No issue. But otherwise, it's a no-no. Really disappointing, obviously, man. I look back at it, such an amazing thing, but then the outcome was horrible. But yeah, that was the story time. 50-50, I guess. It's really nice, but then it's also like, yeah. The living of the small concept of living is actually quite enjoyable. I like that. But yeah, let me know what you think. Do you live on a trailer park? Bye.